It's hard to believe that this is the last night of the Migrant Trail together, and what a week it's been. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just by way of introduction again, I'm Christy Brooks. You saw me about a week ago. I am currently in Michigan on the Anishinaabe lands, right next to the Saginaw Chippewa tribe here in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Grew up between Canada and Arizona, and the borderlands have my heart. And I wish I were there right now, but I'm here with you all, and that's pretty good. It's pretty great, actually. So tonight I'm going to share a PowerPoint with you, just to give you some things to think about as I embark on the task that's ahead of me tonight. So there we go. Does everybody see the full screen and not the rest of it?
We're not seeing anything. What are you trying to do?
Okay. All right. The PowerPoint. There we go. Oh, it says it's failed. Great. Well, hang on.
Try it one more time.
Okay.
Try sharing. There we go.
Okay. All right. And you're seeing the full screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
You're good.
Great. All right. So my task tonight is a recap of what we've heard from our awe-inspiring speakers this week. And I'd like to begin with the words of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As we think about why we walk, why we are on a virtual walk this year, and the context and times in which we walk this particular week. When we look at modern man, we have to face the fact that modern man suffers from a kind of poverty of spirit, which stands in glaring contrast to his scientific and technological abundance. We've learned to fly the air like birds. We've learned to swim the seas like fish. And yet we haven't learned to walk the earth as brothers and sisters. Indeed, on this year's Migrant Trail, we've watched the deaths of our brothers and sisters, captured in those small and sinister red dots, thousands of them spread across El Norte borderlands, victims of policies that intentionally funneled men, women, and children to die in the killing fields of the Sonoran Desert. We learned about the history, from the mythic to today's history, of these borderlands: invasions, wars, violence, and now the open wound of the wall. We heard of denial, disrespect, defilement, and destruction of the sacred indigenous lands and ecosystems of the Oda along the border, and that today's violence against these communities is just one more of the racist and imperialist injustices long and repeatedly committed against them by those in power. We listened about the gross abuses of power of the United States government as it pushes its militarized borders beyond the geopolitical ones already established, and its encroachment on the rights and freedoms of people all over the world. We witnessed the clear disregard for laws meant to protect the flora, fauna, and people living in the borderlands, sacred lives all, to make a clear and unfettered path for a frenzied and lunatic construction of a barrier meant to stop all those who dare transgress it. We beheld the precarity and exploitation of the undocumented throughout various US administrations, a group held at the mercy of whims of policy and court decisions, even now. We took in the horrors of what today's detainee brothers and sisters face as they struggle with the increasingly nefarious policies meant to entrap them, deny their rights, even kill them, all with the impossible added weight of a pandemic. Maybe Dr. King was right. And yet, And yet, this week, we were also called to hope. Kat Rodriguez, introduce us to the beginnings of the Migrant Trail, now 17 years old, a powerful community that comes together in the borderlands to bear witness to the tragedy of death and to the inhumanity in our midst, and take sacred journey as a community in defiance of the borders that attempt to divide us, committed to working together for the human dignity of all peoples. Lupe Castillo told us of her own family and the peoples in the borderlands who were rooted like the mesquite tree to the earth, strong and resilient in the face of so much and so many over history that could uproot them. Nellie Jo David, too, spoke of that same resilience and resistance as it translates into formidable collective actions for Indigenous communities' homelands and sacred spaces in the face of the brute force of federal and corporate bulldozers and dynamite. Todd Miller reminded us of the power of the stories that are being told about how the US and other policies impact migrants and the communities in which migrants are found. Dan Millis recounted the long and slow work of change to address internal and external injustices, even within our own organizations, changes that bring hard-fought progress. Jessica Rodriguez highlighted the power and the daring of youth and people of color who are leading us toward justice, creating strong community actions and support systems, and how those with the power of privilege can amplify the voices and actions of youth and people of color. And Margot Cohen, just last night, preached the power of community to enact profound change, from kitchen tables where the stories told changed the tide on immigration policies, to high school clinics that harness the tenacious strength and smarts of the marginalized. She called us all to turn sadness into action, to always be creative, to find points to bring pressure, to mobilize the community, to shine the light of community brightly. And so. After tonight, we leave the spaces we have created for our Migrant Trail community this week to return in different ways to our worlds. We close grieving as we think of those who have come, those who are coming, and those who will come to the desert borderlands each year, each day, in search of a better life. Our hearts are heavy for what we have learned and talked about together. And they also ache over the death of George Floyd, the completely senseless death of George Floyd and so many others, as we watch our cities erupt in discord, anger, and violence. It's too easy to just get lost in despair. The work for justice isn't easy and it won't ever be done. But there's so much to do, and it needs doing by us. We can help. And now we go on to continue our walk on the trail together in community, no matter where we are, with a call to learn about what you need to know about your communities and nation, with a call to do whatever you're able, with the skills and resources you have, to unceasingly and humbly work toward justice for brothers and sisters everywhere. I'll end with a reminder from Dolores Huerta. Every moment is an organizing opportunity, every person a potential activist, every minute a chance to change the world. Go out and do it in whatever ways you can, together with us and with your communities all over the world. There is hope in our work together for our brothers and sisters everywhere. Adelante. Okay, so next, let me just quit doing that. There we go. Okay.
Okay.
Next.
Hi, everyone. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Samantha. Yep.
I'm Samantha. This is my fourth Migrant Trail Walk this year. I'm originally from Michigan with Christy, and I'm in Auburn, Alabama. I just wanted to give some time for people to reflect. About half of you that joined us this year, and maybe a little bit more than half, are first-time participants in the Migrant Trail, which is fantastic. And one extremely valuable aspect of the Migrant Trail is the sense of community that we have, that we form while we're walking together. And we normally spend a little bit of time each day reflecting on what we've seen and experienced throughout the week. And so, especially since this week, we've had a really difficult week. We've been dealing with a lot of heavy topics, really awesome speakers, but sometimes the situation can feel a little overwhelming. And it's really important to take some time to process that, especially considering what's been happening around our country, and the really tragic situations that have come to light in the Black Lives Matter movement this week. So we'd like to we're inviting a few participants to share their reflections on the experience that they've had this week. So our first participant that is going to share is Rosie Vogan from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And so, especially considering where she's coming from, this has been a really difficult week for her. And this is her first year participating in the Migrant Trail. And so she's going to just share a few thoughts that she's had. Can someone, thank you.
Thank you. It has been a difficult week in many ways, and yet it's been a week that has fed my soul. It was 3 years ago that I first went to the border as a pleasure trip and discovered the wall and started figuring out what was happening. And after spending a month down there, came back, and within 3 weeks I was on an intensive border experience, which definitely rocked my world in ways I didn't expect. The last 2 years, January and February, I've spent as a pilgrim on the border by myself because I didn't know what else to do, and I had enough family, other obligations that I couldn't ever just tie down and say, okay, I'm going here to do something or there to do something. And so I just would drive from the Gulf west and then from west back to the Gulf, stopping and working wherever I could. Became very connected with people. I held their babies while they took showers for the first time. I handed out shoelaces as they shuffled in to houses, to shelters. And this year I spent a lot of time in Matamoros, in the tent city. When I come home back to Minnesota, I have a tough time because it's easier to be there and be involved than it is to be away. And what the Migrant Trail gave me this year was a chance to be here and be involved. And I am extremely grateful for that. I learned a lot more. I'm constantly looking for sources to learn more and ways to do things. When I returned this year, literally, I left the 2nd or 3rd of March, coming home to meet a friend so that we could take a fast cruise for a month to Hawaii, and then I intended to go back to the border. By the time I got to Minneapolis, we were on lockdown, and this is the 80th day I've been in my house. I am an at-risk person. To be able to be involved with the Migrant Trail has been something that has allowed me to address my own personal fears about COVID. I have parents in assisted living in their 90s. I have a son who's a high risk, he's special needs. He's in lockdown in Kansas. My folks are in Iowa, I'm in Minnesota. It was like I couldn't do anything. And being involved with the Migrant Trail allowed me to have a sense of purpose and a sense of passion. When I returned a year ago from my first pilgrimage along the border, I got back in time for Holy Week, and St. John's asked me if I would be one of the people that they could wash my feet, because they wanted me to represent all the migrants that I was working with. And this morning's reflection, and to learn that that was part of the ritual at the end of the Migrant Trail, was very meaningful to me because of that. It just, such a humbling experience, because you know what they're going through in a way that a lot of people don't even stop to think about. I have walked many miles for peace when I was younger, and so I know what walking does to the body. But to walk in heat, to walk in fear, and to walk with the hope that maybe I'll be one that makes it, and to recognize that many do not. That's very humbling, and thank you to the Migrant Walk for that. With everything going on, I haven't had time the last 2 days to post anything. I hope to put more reflections on our Facebook page as I continue to process what's happening here in Minneapolis. Because there's so many tie-ins to what's happening on the border to what's happening here. How people are feeling desperate, how people are feeling unheard, how people are pleading for their lives. The one thing I'm seeing here in the cities, and what I discovered with all of you on the Migrant Trail this week, is that sense of hope that together we each can do something to make it better. And Margot's words last night of laws and courtrooms do not provide remedies, the community does. And we are a community. We can be a community of one, we can be a community of all of us. So thank you so much for having this opportunity for me.
Thank you so much, Rosie. That was great. Our next person who will share is a participant. His name is Ken Jones, and he is walking in Swannanoa, North Carolina. Ken, there you are. Great.
Okay. Hello, everyone. And I'm glad to have this opportunity to speak. I've been walking every day, the miles that are listed as part of the Migrant Trail Walk. And I've done other peace walks, and this one is pretty unique for me. For one thing, you can come home every night and sleep in your own bed, which is unusual and a pleasure. And yet it's, there's this sense of, I want to call it a paradox or something. On the one hand, I know that I'm part of this community that's the Migrant Trail Walk. And I know why we're doing what we're doing. My partner Melody here sitting beside me and I have been to the border several times, most recently for 3 weeks in Douglas, Agua Prieta with Jack and Linda, many of you know, who have been on the Migrant Trail Walk. And we were doing accompaniment with Christian peacemaker teams, going back and forth across the border and meeting people who were migrating, seeking asylum. And we have a heart for those people and the circumstances and the terrible suffering that they're going through, and yet at the same time, the hopes that they have and the determination they have. So I wanted to be part of the Migrant Trail Walk, and when it didn't happen, I was happy to know that I could be part of this virtual walk. It is a community for me, and it gives me a sense of belonging to people who are working on this and caring about this. And I must say that I understand my own privilege, and my walk is in a beautiful place. I live in the mountains of Western North Carolina, and I walk through the woods, and it's by a river, and mostly I'm alone with my thoughts. And I know that the place I'm in is so different from the place migrants are in. And in the past few nights, and especially this evening, I've been watching all of the stuff going on about the riots in the streets over the killing of George Floyd. And, you know, it's hard. It is hard in the heart. And I know it is for you all too. And so we have places that we want to be spiritually and emotionally, and at the same time, in my case at least, I'm not present in those places. I'm not present at the border. I'm not present in the places where people are uprising. And so there's this question in my mind about how do I send my love? How do I send my care? And I do think that there's a place where our being and our prayers and our meditations rise to a place that's beyond the physical. And that's what's sort of been in my heart as I walk, is to bear in mind why I'm walking, the purpose why I'm walking, and to somehow give a voice, even though it's silent, even though it's alone here in the mountains, and hope that it rises. I wrote a poem today. I went out and walked along the river, and I talked to my telephone so I could remember what I was thinking. So I want to read you that poem, and then it'll capture a little bit of what I'm trying to say. It is called Awake, and that's 2 words, awake. I walk at dawn, glad to be in this brisk morning air, listening to this bird song in the wakening sky. Among these stoic mountains, breathing in this stillness. I'm not alone as I walk in this moment, not separate from the life around me and within me. I touch the cross hanging from my neck, the one from El Salvador, with the rising quetzal bird painted on it. And I think of the migrants walking for their lives, nor am I separate from them. I walk beside a rushing stream, seeing trees that have fallen over across the stream, caught and held up by trees on the other bank. And I think of my walking intention, to be with the migrants, to hold them up, to accompany them in spirit, to intend that they be safe and loved, and that they get home. This is my prayer. I see a duck in the lake softly moving through the still, leaving a V-shaped wake of ripples spreading outward. As I walk, I ask that the ripples of my prayer reach out to touch those who are walking for their lives, telling them, you are not alone, we are with you. I walk past a pair of women strolling arm in arm together, being in the moment, just accompanying each other. Baba Ram Dass once said, what we are doing here in this life is simply walking each other home. And so I walk in this beauty with my prayer, feeling the presence of my kinship with other walkers, sending a wake out from my heart.
Thank you, Ken. I like the idea that we're all walking together, even though we're all across North America. The next person who will share is Judy Stavely. And Judy was actually with me on my first Migrant Trail, and she is a wonderful person. This is her third year participating. She's from Mendocino, California.
Well, this is all very strange to me. I have such a hard time talking into the computer and not seeing anybody that I'm talking to. So I just hope, I feel like I'm talking to myself. I did join the Migrant Trail for the first time in 2017 after Trump was elected. And it was one of the hardest things I'd ever done physically. I think I drove everybody crazy that I got to know that year because I asked so many questions about the border and what does this mean and what does that mean? And I think Jamie got tired of seeing me coming. But at the end of that year, I felt like I'd learned a lot. And I also felt in this way that I can't explain that I was on a journey and I didn't know where it was taking me, but I feel like I still am on that journey. The second year when I went back, I was lucky enough to become friends with Judy and Lucy, the sisters that live in Douglas, and they helped me experience the border in a whole different way. I was able to spend some time in Agua Prieta at the Kame shelter, and then they and Kat helped me be able to spend some time in Casa Alitas last year, and I did both of those things while everyone else was walking the trail walk. I felt like I learned and understood more and more and more and more about what's happening on the border, what's happening to people who are seeking asylum, what's happening to people who are crossing, what's happening to people who are dying in the desert. And then this last winter, I went to Tijuana and worked with Al Otro Lado as a volunteer. I took care of children while their parents talked to lawyers. The horribleness and the enormity of the MPP program really became apparent to me that at that point. The last family I saw there before I came home was a man with 2 young daughters, and he had a wonderful case for coming into the United States, but he was sent back and he was in MPP. And he looked at me and said, "Only God can help us now." He has stayed with me the entire time since I've come back. We left and the border became closed within a month after that, because that was just earlier this spring. This year I was going to walk with you all again. And so when the virtual Migrant Trail came up, I was glad, because what I miss about it the most is the chance to really be able to sit down and talk with you one-to-one or in small groups and share experiences, because I live in a community that is both white and not white. Our small town is a tourist town. It's very white and very, very privileged. But we have another small town close to us that has very, very many Latino people who work in service industries in our tourist town. I've been lucky enough to be able to get to know many of those people, but I also have longtime friends, people that I've known in our white community. This year, with the Migrant Trail Walk, I really appreciated how much of it was informational. That's something that we don't have in the same way when we're walking out in the desert. And it was so well thought out and so well presented this year that I really appreciate that. And I appreciate all the presenters and the thought that went into that. For me personally, I knew a lot of that. And yet, with Lupe's presentation, and then with all the other presentations, and particularly Nellie Jo's presentation, I just got smacked in the face with my white privilege. And I started seeing so clearly the how colonialism and white supremacy are connected. It's a direct line. And I saw, and I've thought about this a lot before this week too, but this week it's just so clear to me. And this was even before the protests started. And then the very next day they started. So this is something that is all connected. It's all connected in our country. Race and the problems around race are one of the, I think, the biggest problem that we have to face and that we have to deal with and that we have to heal. And for me, I feel like I need to look inside because I was born and raised in a racist society, and we all were. And I have to examine myself, and I have to say, when I say that, is that hurtful? And I have to be able to talk about race openly, and I have to be able to talk about race with my children and my grandchildren. And fortunately, I have 3 daughters that we talk about that all the time anyway, but I have to learn how to carry those conversations into my privileged white community as well. I have many friends who like to say, I don't see race. I don't think that's helpful. I think we need to learn to see and examine what is happening and why we are allowed to be so inhumane to each other. And then the other thing I'm really thinking about a lot is that when I'm in groups with my Latino friends, I need to shut up. And I need to let my friends tell me what they would like to see happen. And then I need to ask them how I can help. So those are the things that I've been thinking about this week. Those are the things that matter to me right now. And I want to thank again, particularly Judy and Lucy and Kat, because you've been really instrumental in helping me along my journey. And I wish I could talk to all the rest of you, because I know I wouldn't feel alone in my journey if I had you to talk to personally. And I don't feel alone because I know I've got you anyway, but it's way better to talk 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 or face-to-face. So that's all I have to say, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to say it.
Thank you so much, Judy. Yeah, it's been really hard being away from everybody. I agree. But our next reflection will come from Eileen O'Farrell Smith. She is also a first-year participant, and she is walking in Chicago, Illinois.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Samantha. Hi, friends on the journey. I just want to echo what people have said too, and the thank you to our hosts. Your presentation, your program planning has been masterful, and it's just been an honor to spend this week together. I should say just briefly that yesterday, kind of in line with our morning readings, here in Chicago, I live in the city, there was a protest at Cook County Jail to protest against the detainees for ICE. And I thought, well, it was a caravan, and I thought, well, I can do this. And so I did it. And then it was profound and meaningful, prayerful. We took a knee. And when I came home, the city caught on fire, as you probably saw. And I was so emotional, I spent most of last night crying. So my reflection is on paper. So forgive me for reading. Because it's been quite a week. I have to say that my body is not sore, although my spirit is raw. I have learned and seen very much this week, and I am left with many contradictions, many that have left me feeling soul sick. The image of the ugly wall made manifest in the betrayal and lawlessness of our government, the destruction of sacred lands and languages, the desperation and horror of detention and separation of families at the hands of those who should be protecting us, the racism and marginalization of the indigenous peoples on whose land we stand, and the militarization of this land. Our founders could never have imagined such a place as the 100-mile Constitution-free zone. On one walk this week, I learned about the indigenous peoples here in the Midwest, including the Potawatomi, who were forced and driven off their land to create the city of Chicago in 1832. The perversive, intentional cruelty of it all. But during this week, there has also been bridge building and abundant grace on view. The men, and see, I'm going to start getting emotional. The men and women who work tirelessly to restore the dignity and intrinsic value of these border crossers in a variety of ways. Putting water and food in these desert lands, those that are present in the legal system, to the legal system, be it the accompaniment of detainees in court or doing necessary paperwork, providing legal solutions to many, those devoted to the environment and pushing back both in documenting the destruction by their presence and fighting through lawsuits. Loving kindness, steadfast courage, and community have all been present to me this week. Si se puede. In closing, I want to share a blessing, if I may, a benediction of sorts, which is dedicated to the thousands of migrants who have died and to their families whose sorrow is untouchable. If you know the refrain, we remember them, please join me, even if your mics are muted. This is a litany of remembrance by Rabbi Sylvan Kamens and Rabbi Jack Reamer. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. And together we say, Amen.
Thank you so much. It's really great to see how much this is meaning to people who it's your first time and virtual. It's really nice to hear. Thank you for that. Our next reflection will be Virginia Sanchez. I've gotten to know Virginia a little bit this week because she is also living in Auburn, Alabama, and we have been walking together a little bit throughout the week and getting to know each other. So we've been able to build a little sense of community in our area, and this is also her first time walking.
Hi, everyone. So I don't want to make this about myself, but I do want to share a little bit about my background just so you can kind of understand how I approach the Migrant Trail. So I'll start by saying I'm an assistant professor, so a lot of my work is very academic. I'm in the School of Communication and Journalism, and my work is focused on immigration. I think a lot about how so I focus on intergenerational communication patterns. I think a lot about narratives of immigration, narratives of deservingness are super important to me to think about and to address. I think about media and government representations, but the one thing I don't do directly is work surrounding the borderlands. So that's definitely an area where I had been lacking. A lot of my students have backgrounds that are very different from mine. I teach a lot of more affluent white students. So I think a lot about how to best present information to them. Not necessarily that I'm sugarcoating anything. I'm just, trying to think about the messages they've heard about the border and about immigration, and how I can sort of help them start challenging some of those things that they've heard, which tend to be more negatively toned, unfortunately. I also sit at a computer a lot, which is not my favorite thing to do. So the Migrant Trail really gave me the incentive and the opportunity to get out into my community and hopefully in the future to join you all on the border. But to really get to know members of my community, like Samantha, Christine, Jamie, and her son Finch, who was a pleasure to go on walks with. So that's one sort of aspect about me, is that sort of academic background. But I think for me, more importantly, my parents are immigrants from Mexico. They both came. My dad first came when he was 18, and it was, mostly to work. So I've learned a lot about what it meant to cross, just talking to them, to members of my community. And just friends and other family members. We've got like a history of migration. And I think up until now, I'm part of that first generation that really stayed here. And so I'm glad you guys are really raising awareness, because there's a trauma that gets passed, because migration is it's very traumatizing. And so there's conversations about mental health that really need to happen. And I'm so glad that there's people like you who are willing to, go out there and try to understand what this experience is like. So, a few things I've learned about the borderlands and about policies have been pretty impactful. I've also learned about the environmental effects, which was another area that I was really lacking in. I didn't know about, the type of plants that were there, what was happening to the animals and to other forms of wildlife. That was very new to me and very impactful. But I also reflect on a lot of the skills that we picked on, or that we picked up on, that we learned about, that can really be applied to other movements. I'm especially reflecting on, and I keep going back to what Jessica said about, how we can use our bodies to help, like the Black Lives Matter movement, for example, and how, people who are older, potentially white, how they can really step into these movements, and how we can sort of go in and make a difference and really help each other out. So I'll end it by saying that, I've learned a lot. This has been impactful, and I really hope to be able to walk with you all in the future, in person and at the border. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. Our last person who will share tonight is Dan Abbott, and he is walking in Tempe, Arizona, and all veterans know him because this is his 16th Migrant Trail. He's walked almost every year.
Good evening. In 2005, I was looking around, I just retired from a job, and I was looking around to really get involved, to put my heart and soul into something. I saw an advertisement for a workshop in Tucson, and I thought, what the hell, I'll go. I had been introduced, and I had my background as a social worker, so I had a sense about what some of the issues were. But in fact, I think our church had started selling Cafe Justo, and maybe we'd started driving with Humane Borders, but I really wasn't into it. So I went to this workshop, and my life dramatically changed. I found out about the Migrant Trail, and I thought, well, I can do that. And then I found out also that people were going down to Chiapas to learn about coffee. I said, I can do that. And it really changed probably the next 15 years of my life, both those experiences. Going on the Migrant Trail the first time, my wife, Catherine, took me down to Tucson. And as I got closer and closer to Tucson, I thought, oh my God, what am I doing? I don't know any of these people, and I'm going to be out on the desert for 75 miles. And we were having supper at the Cup. You Tucson people know the Cup is a restaurant in downtown Tucson. And I remember looking up on the wall, and there was a photograph of a migrant who was crossing. And it was like, okay, I can get this. This is like a sign that I need to do this. And I did it. And I've been involved in every migrant trail at some point or the other since that time. I guess the first thing that I want to mention, for many of you, the beauty of the desert is profound. I've had 15 years of watching it and looking at it as I've crossed with the Migrant Trail, but I've also driven water trucks with Humane Borders. And so I've seen the beauty that comes in the spring, and how certain things die off in the summer, but come back. And I think Eric's images that we've seen this week have really been wonderful, and have given that sense of it. But I want to tell you about a story real quickly. In 2007, we were up real early to do that early morning walk. And we were walking in the dark. We had lights on, and I was walking about 2/3 of the way back, and we were in double line. And all of a sudden, I saw the line part. And I moved, I followed the person in front of me. And there in the middle of the road was a small rattlesnake. And its tail was up, and it was ready to strike. And we all parted, and we passed it, and we went on. And 5 or 10 minutes later, I heard the whoop, whoop, whoop of a helicopter. And a helicopter came down the length of this group, and it was a large group. I don't know, we had about 60 people that year. And it was National Guard helicopter. And it went to the front of the line, and then with its strobe light just came slowly back down the line. And those of you that were there remember that it did it a second time. And the second time it did it, we held up our white crosses to it. And that image is burned in my memory of holding up a cross, a symbol of justice, and the symbol of what has happened in that desert to that light. As I thought of that experience over the years, I've thought, in my privilege, and I also am so aware of my own privilege, I don't have to dive under mesquite trees to avoid being detected by the Border Patrol. I don't have to worry about getting bit by rattlesnakes. but so many people do, and my heart went out and goes out to them all the time. The other thing I want to tell you about is the remarkable sense of community that develops on the Migrant Trail. Some of this you can get on the Zoom that we've done, but you know, you don't get to hear somebody snore on Zoom. I'm just telling you, there's nothing like that until you're encamped and you start to hear the sound of people sleeping. But community is real powerful, and usually when you're a newcomer, by Wednesday you start to feel and you start to see people get engaged, and by Thursday they're with it, and then by Saturday, if you're a first timer or an old coot like me, you're in it and you're together. And I remember, I don't know what year it was, maybe 2012 or 2013. And for those of you with a religious bent, you'll appreciate this. We had an Episcopal priest from Kansas who was along, and he said, you know, we ought to have the sacrament here. And I'm looking around for some wine, and of course we didn't have wine. But he said, well, let's take some Gatorade and a tortilla up on the hill. And so he gathered us all, and there was a Catholic and a Methodist and a Presbyterian and a bunch of Mennonites and others. And it was a profound image that I'll hold in my head, because whatever our background, we were all in this together. And we had a common belief about the importance of understanding and walking with our people in the desert. So that sense of community has given, looks out for people. And it gave me a chance to do something that I never imagined I would do. I believe that I've been called to try to be useful, not all the time. But I've discovered, and Kat helped me discover this, that I have a certain skill in herding sheep. And I'm on the safety group, and part of what I do is just kind of encourage people to stay up and to stay together. And it's what I can give to that community. And so I think when those of you that are going to be on it, you'll find a place. You'll find a place, whether it's digging latrines or you're moving stuff on and off the truck. There'll be something for you to do. Another thing that I've discovered and that I've profited from in the Migrant Trail is an incredible leadership that I've seen and experienced and been able to walk with. And it's been well represented by the speakers that you all have seen. You know, there's nothing better than walking with Margot and sharing stories of our grandchildren. You know, I can hear her talk about her immense passion, but boy, wait till she tells you about her grandchildren. And I think when you get to know some folks that we hold in such kind of reverence, it really is powerful. I think catching an evening breeze with Lupe or Maria, or sharing an evening meal with Todd or Kat has been a profound opportunity for me to grow. And I think that's really valuable. But I want to tell you that when I walked into Hell Camp, or Owl Camp, my first year, I thought to myself, you know, what can I do here? I'm this old white guy that my Spanish is for shit. I'm really not good at languages. And what am I going to be able to do? I'm a middle-class Anglo. I really don't want to, it's not my place or my position to be involved with this. And I decided that I was called to be a messenger to other white people like me, to talk about justice and to talk about what's going on on the border and to share what I saw and I see every week when I go out with Humane Borders, so that, I'm sorry, my Spanish is kind of shitty, but I really believe that I have a place where I can share the story. So as a result of that, I probably talked to thousands of people about social justice, around economic things with Cafe Justo. I've spoken about it, and Catherine and I have opened our heart and our home to our brothers and sisters from across the border. And so I have to tell you that the Migrant Trail is just a profound way, whatever your background, of finding a place to be useful. And I am incredibly grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much to everyone who shared about their experiences this week. I just want to leave off the sharing part with just, especially if this is your first time participating, that sense of community is so important for maintaining. A lot of us talked a lot last year about how our emotional health, because if we're in fighting for border justice or immigration justice, it really takes a lot out of you, processing what's going on in the country with police brutality or systematic brutality against people of color in general. And especially with the panelists all week, it's such a complex problem. You have to find some kind of sense of community to stay emotionally healthy. So we hope that this has helped build that a little bit in whatever way we can virtually. I think next we're going to Chandra made a slideshow photo compilation set to music. Are you sharing that, Christy?
I can.
Okay.
Ready? Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Many thanks to Chandra, who's not able to be with us in this space every day, but she has been knocking it out on her own for us and with us. So hopefully this will work. Let's go ahead and try. Just sit back for about six or so minutes and enjoy the images and the words that you all have contributed this week. Look, everybody see that? You got it? Okay.
Christy, make sure to hear.
Sorry?
Just make sure to select the computer audio in your screen.
Okay. All right, let's try that again. Yep, gotcha. Okay. Sorry, at my university, we are not using Zoom, so I haven't had a whole semester or half a semester to get up on this. Okay, so let's try that now. Oh boy, now it's asking for my.
I think you did whiteboard.
Okay. How's that?
There you go.
Okay. Thanks for your patience, everybody. All right, enjoy.
Voy a cantarles, señores, todo lo que yo sufrí cuando dejé a mi patria por venir a este país. Serían las 10 de la noche, comenzó un tren a silbar. Oye, ¿qué dijo mi madre? Ese tren te va a llevar. Adiós mi madre querida, écheme su bendición. Yo me voy pa'l otro lado, donde no hay revolución. Al fin sonó la campana, 2 silbidos pegó el tren. No lloren mis compañeros, que me hacen llorar también. Pasamos pronto a Jalisco, ay qué fuerte corría el tren. Luego Irapuato y La Chona y Aguascalientes también. Yo me voy al otro lado, yo me voy. Yo me voy para otro lado, yo me voy. Yo me voy para otro lado, donde no hay revolución. Llegamos a la frontera, allí pasó la inspección. A toditos nos bañaron sin ninguna explicación. De allí salimos pa'l norte, a los campos de labor. Levantamos las cosechas cada día bajo el sol. Los güeros son muy maloras, se valen de la ocasión. Ya todos los mexicanos nos tratan sin compasión. Hoy traen la gran polvadera y sin consideración. Mujeres, niños y ancianos nos echan esta nación. Adiós paisanos queridos, ya nos van a deportar, pero no somos bandidos, venimos a trabajar. Yo me voy al otro lado, yo me voy. Yo me voy al otro lado, yo me voy. Yo me voy al otro lado, donde no hay revolución.
Okay. There we have your words and images throughout the week. And from walkers who've come before too, who weren't with us this week, it's pretty extraordinary to see all those things from the borderlands, but also from where you all are. Okay, so next, we are going to do the names, right? Presente, am I correct? No, not now.
I believe it's Kat right now.
Okay, Kat, go ahead.
Hello again, everybody. Let's see. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I just wasn't sure if we were on speaker viewer. Okay, so I am, one thing that I think is one of the most beautiful things about the Migrant Trail organizing committee, and that group has shifted over the years, is our intention, our commitment to talking things out and thinking them through with intention. The first year, it was a bunch of us who had friends who had crossed, who'd known people who had died, who had been taking delegations to the border and speaking to people, and we just kind of wanted to know a little bit more, understand a little bit more about that journey. And we planned it and we did it, and it never occurred, definitely didn't occur to my 24-year-old self that that we would be doing this for this long. I think none of us thought it would be this long, but that first year we were just walking. And in those days, self-service was really terrible. And once we got onto the refuge, we had no communication at all. We had to like run up to like higher mountains or higher elevation to try to get a signal if we needed it. So we had no idea what people back in Tucson were thinking about us or knowing about us out in the desert. And then we arrived on that last day, leaving Hell Camp, which it'll forever be Hell Camp for me. I know it has a pretty name now, but we left there, and it's a 6.7 mile day, which is pretty short considering we had some people joined us for the last day. And then we arrived to the park, and there were more than 200 people waiting for us. And every single one of us cried. And I think for me, that final day coming into Kennedy Park feels like, because you arrive, there's smiling faces and there's food and there's a foot washing ceremony, and it's just love and care. And I think very much for me, I think about it as us arriving to the welcome that we wish our sisters and brothers in the desert were receiving, and people coming across the border and people seeking asylum and people needing refuge. That's the welcome that we all believe they deserve, that we believe our country, our communities, our society should be providing to them. So at the end of that year, a bunch of people asked, are you going to do it again? Are you going to do it again? And it had not occurred to us to do that again. I mean, Todd didn't mention this, but he actually sunburned his retina, which I didn't even know you could do that because he had his glasses on instead of sunglasses. So we were, I mean, it was intense. So it hadn't occurred to us. So a couple months went by, and then we got together and we had a conversation about, are we doing this again? And we took it very seriously because we didn't think it should be done like, oh, let's do it again. And maybe if we feel like it another year. So we sat down and we made a commitment that we were going to walk until the death stopped. And I think every single one of us kept thinking every year as the deaths increased, as more and more people died on the border, that is this the number? Have we reached the number that finally change is going to happen? Is this enough? Is this enough? And it's never been enough. It's never been enough. And so we've we've walked. So we agreed that we would only walk again if we committed to walking every year. And so here we are. So this year, it was a very painful realization to know that we could not walk physically, that we had to cancel it, everything that was going on around the pandemic and all that was happening. It just wasn't going to be safe. And so there started to be a conversation about, well, we could do this virtual experience. And then we went into why, what would be the goal? What would we be doing? And what we came out of that was that we wanted to keep that thread, that connection of our journey and our commitment. We wanted people to know that the deaths weren't stopping when COVID started. That, you know, just because there's a global pandemic does not change the root causes that are continuing to displace people. And then we also talked about how the pandemic was affecting people locally. And in Tucson, many of the border organizations have been really hard hit. I'm actually, one organization we didn't hear directly from was Borderlinks, and Borderlinks is actually sort of home to the birthplace of the Migrant Trail, because Todd and Holly, who the two of the three people that thought up the idea of the Migrant Trail, were working at Borderlinks at the time, and Borderlinks has been a co-sponsor every single year of the Migrant Trail. And Borderlinks is an organization that's been around for over 30 years and does the work year-round of taking people and delegations to the border, having them see firsthand, talking to people in a very intentional way. Lots of schools and church groups, and they do some amazing work. Also, some of that hard work of talking about privilege and space and centering directly affected communities. And so every single delegation that Borderlinks had planned all through the winter have been canceled. So it's an organization that has been directly hit. So we started talking about what if we were to ask for a registration fee, but it would go to support border groups. And so we talked about it and wanted it to be a meaningful amount. So so we chose Borderlinks, Keep Tucson Together, which Margot and Lupe are part of. You heard about the legal clinics that they do, where they train community folks to fill out this paperwork. Those people then train other people. I mean, it's an amazing, you know, grassroots group. The Autumn Anti-Border Collective, you heard from Nellie Joe, that's really doing the important work of creating space for Autumn people to come together and create this space to resist the militarization. And then there's the No More Deaths Emergency COVID-19 Bond Fund, which Margot talked a little bit about the bond fund. So those are the four organizations that we selected that 100% of your registration fees would go to. So I would like to tell you that right now we have raised $10,749.27, which translates to $2,687.32 per organization. So we would like to keep our donation box open through June 7th actually, where we would, if every single person who has participated this week donated $10 more or found someone to donate $10 more, we could give each organization $3,000, which would be a nice goal. So this is a little pitch to you if you have it in your heart to give us a little extra, 10 bucks or more, find someone that would be willing to, and we will send out, when we send out the final in a couple of weeks, probably we'll send out a link to an evaluation survey for you to give us some feedback, and I will report the final number that we were able to give. But all of the work that was put into this by the organizing committee was done 100% volunteer, was done on our time with our, you know, our energy and our space such as it exists in this virtual place. And we privately amongst ourselves raised a little bit of money to pay honorariums for a few of the speakers, but we really wanted to be able to say 100% of registration fees go to the 4 groups, and we can say that. So this is my request to you, if you can find it in your heart or know somebody who might be interested in donating. Like I said, if everybody did $10 more, we would hit a 3,000 mark per group, which would be pretty cool. So I think our Zoom masters have put a link to the PayPal in the chat. So if you could do that. Also on our website, there's a link there as well. And if you wanted to look at the 4 organizations that we selected, there, there's others that could have been selected, and but we wanted each amount to be meaningful. So we narrowed it down to those 4. So we just want you to know that all of the money that you've sent is going to very, very good causes. It is going to groups who do the grassroots hard work in the border and who are struggling right now. So thank you all so much. It's been a huge pleasure to virtually meet you all this year.
Okay, Tom, I think you're next.
I'm next. Okay. So we're closing the 2020 Migrant Trail, but in a real sense, we're continuing on with the 2020 Migrant Trail. Tonight we've looked back at our journey together this week, and we've looked back over some of the past 17 years that we've been together on this journey. And we're also looking forward with a vision for building and sustaining our community, sustaining our solidarity and our work for justice in the borderlands and wherever we walk. I should say, when we think about wherever we're walking, I'm walking in Colorado, near Denver. This is Arapaho land. This is Cheyenne land. And this is Ute. One of the most powerful and important parts of the Migrant Trail is this community we've formed over years of walking together and living together. Whether physically close as in past years, as Dan points out, sometimes very close, or virtually close, as we have been this year. Whether this is your first year, or your 5th, or your 10th, or your 16th, like me. Ahora somos, now we are all compañeras y compañeros en el caminata del inmigrante. We are companions, and we are fellow travelers in this Migrant Trail Walk. Honoring and remembering those who, in defiance of the borders that seek to divide us, courageously migrate through this beautiful and awful desert for the love of family, seeking life. Especially, we remember and we honor those who have perished in that crossing. Those sisters and brothers, fathers and mothers, sons and daughters, whose spirits remain in these borderlands and in our hearts and in their families' hearts, in never-ending remembrance. This week, we've heard from our compañeras y compañeros about their work in border justice and about the unspeakable tragedies and violations that continue to unfold every day in the borderlands and throughout our country. No doubt, there is equally important justice and accompaniment work going on in your home communities. We want to share in your struggles and la lucha and in your victories as well. All of us can turn to this Migrant Trail community to continue learning, to make connections and network, to plug into and join in and strengthen the efforts that we and others in our own communities are undertaking. So the Migrant Trail does not end here today. For migrants, their families, or for us, we continue moving forward in all ways. For them and for us, as has been said, caminante, peregrino, no hay camino. Construimos el camino al andar. Pilgrim, traveler, there is no road. We make the road as we go. Conjuntos, cada día, together every day. And as Brother Martin, Dr. King, who started us out tonight, as he put it, if you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving. Somos un pueblo. We are one community. Ándale. Hasta la victoria.
Thank you, Tom, for those words and for the call to action wherever we are, in community and for community. We have so much power as we work through things together and fight for justice. We'll close tonight, as we do, walking into Kennedy Park on Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning, by reading the names, by calling out the names, and remembering those who have died in their walk and in their journey to a better life. This year, between October 1st and April 30th, we have the remains of 115 individuals who recovered on the Arizona-Sonora border. You have seen these names in your participant packet, and you will have noticed, perhaps, that for many of them, we don't have their names. And for some of them, marked desconocido a, we don't even know what sex they were. I would invite all of you, even with your mutes on, to repeat the phrase presente. As we read each name, you'll hear us doing it as well, as we honor and remember those lost in our deserts, in the borderlands. Okay, so Magda.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Jesús Valdés Meléndez.
Presente.
José Tagle Reynoso.
Presente.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Araceli Algodón Jiménez.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
José Rodas Piñeda.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido.
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 Presente.
That's the column I have.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Kat, are you with us? Is Kat with us?
You're muted, Kat.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
José López Guyan, 26.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Ángel Camacho Arenas, 32.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Margarita Ortiz Zamora, 20.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido.
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 Presente.
José Valderas Bernardo.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
John Ramos Zapata.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Constantino Bautista Cruz.
Presente.
Efran Medrano Morales.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido A.
Presente.
Desconocido.
Presente.
Sorry, I wanted to give us all a moment to think about all those names that we just heard. And with that, we'll close the Migrant Trail for this year. We thank you all for joining us and for walking with us in this very strange year. But I know I have been moved beyond words here. And yeah, I don't even know what to say now. So if I'll invite any final words from the organizing committee.
Would folks want to end with maybe saying the migrant prayer together? Okay, let me see. Somebody has it on their screen. I could share screen. Let me pull it up. Oh, you know what? It was on my Facebook, right? We put it on Facebook. And do we want to say it in English or in Spanish?
Spanish.
Sorry, we posted a lot of pictures on Facebook.
Yeah. So as we say it in Espanol, let's let's say it with a slow pacing so that those of us whose Spanish is rudimentary at best can read along.
Okay. Let me just get to it. Oh my goodness, I'm having trouble finding it on the, and I'm the one that posted it.
It's on the first page of the, or the second page of the participant packet.
Ah, okay, let me do that instead. All right, I will share. It's on the second page.
Second or third, something like that.
I see the vision, I don't see the prayer.
I just had it a minute ago. Yeah, it's right after the table of contents. The vision statement.
No, we're doing the migrant prayer.
I'm sorry.
Let me see if I can just get to it.
Ed, I can share it from the first night. We can do it
Thank
in
you.
English.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Why don't you share it? And then would somebody like to say it? I can just do it since it was my
Okay.
birthday.
Let's see. Sorry, I'm just going back into my emails. Is this it? No, this is not it. Sorry. One more. Apologies to everyone who's waiting for us doing this.
Yeah. Sorry, we didn't plan this part, but I feel like it's a good way to end.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Kat, I'm pulling it up. Everybody.
Okay.
Somewhere it is vision and the prayer. Okay. So we'll go ahead and do this in English.
This prayer was originally made by Padre Rene.
I have it, Christy, if you want.
Go ahead, Eric.
In Altar, which is one of the jumping off places for migrants coming up to the border.
Okay. All right, so here we go.
Can you read that okay?
I can read that, yes. Oración por los migrantes. Creador amoroso, lleno de amor y misericordia, quiero pedirte por mis hermanos migrantes. Ten piedad de ellos y protégelos, pues sufren maltratos y humillaciones en su caminar. Son señalados por la mayoría como peligrosos y marginados por ser extranjeros. Haz que les respetemos y valoremos su dignidad. Toca con tu bondad el corazón de cuantos los vemos pasar. Cuida a sus familias hasta que regresen a sus casas, no con el corazón roto, sino con sus esperanzas colmadas. Así sea.
Así sea. Así sea.
Good night to everyone. Blessings to all of you on your journeys, and we hope to see you somehow soon. Good night.
Love you all.
Gracias.
Love you all.
Thank you all so much. Good night.
Good night. Good night.
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 Black Lives Matter, and so do migrant lives. Thank you so much.
Thanks for all of your.
Thank you for everything. Thank you for everything. Be safe, be well. Safe, be well.
looks like her mother. I doubt it. Her name's Baker. She's married to somebody.
Did I go ahead and close the room?
Sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I did it.
Good job, everybody.